James Rutenbeck, producer, writer, and director, joins us today to discuss his movie, Scenes from a Parish, which airs on Catholic TV, and Father and I were talking about a little bit earlier. And James, this Easter season may remind you of your experience of entering the church as an adult. Tell us about your RCIA experience.
Well, I can either tell the long version or the short version.
I'd say the shorter version, just, you know.
Well, it started when, when my son was 5 years old, and he was diagnosed with autism. And I still remember this so vividly, being in Chinatown at New England Medical Center, and going into this little office, talking with the psychologist about my son, and who had just been tested. And she said that we knew that he was very different, but it was a real shock for us. And she said that he would not progress beyond probably 18 months cognitively, and that he was nonverbal, and he still is nonverbal. He's 23 now.
Okay.
And he's doing well. He's actually in college.
Wow.
And has succeeded beyond what anyone ever expected. But at the time, it was really a devastating experience for me. And parents respond to these kinds of situations in different ways. And for me, it was, for some reason, I wasn't practicing anything. But I was just so angry at God for doing this, for allowing this kind of thing. I mean, at the time, I had a very narrow vision, I guess, because I didn't really have any consciousness of disabled people, or I was just sort of running on my own ego and wanting to have a family that was, you know, perfect. And so it really like pulled the rug out from under us, from my wife and I. And she responded by becoming very proactive about his education. And I, over time, was just sort of railing at God and crying at night, and just, I was so upset about it. And over time, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was developing a relationship with God. And it's very, I never know how much to say about this or how discreet I should be, but I experienced something very powerful, like the presence of God and the raw love of God in my life. And it changed me in big ways, but I didn't quite know where to go with it at the time. So I ended up, this is the long version, I guess.
That's okay.
I ended up, I had heard that, you know, I sort of knew vaguely that there was a mystical tradition within Catholicism. And so I thought, I was just wondering, where can I go with this? Who could I talk to about this? And so I decided, well, maybe a priest would be helpful. So I just started calling parishes in Newton, Massachusetts, where we live. And I ended up talking to Father Bob Varek at St. Ignatius Parish. And all the other parishes had message machines, and I wasn't able to speak to anyone. But he picked up, and he invited me to to come to RCIA. And he was very relaxed about it, and just said, you know, come check it out and see what you think. So I was part of that for 2 years, because even though I felt like I was being drawn by the Holy Spirit, I was fighting it intellectually in many ways. So it took me a while, but finally, in the second year, during the Good Friday liturgy, I had been watching people participate in the liturgy. I had been going to masses, but I couldn't be a participant. So this was really the first time that I was able to sort of go forward and express something, physically, and during the veneration of the cross. And it was a really powerful experience for me. And so I became a Catholic in 2000. So it's been 13 years since that happened. It still feels like yesterday in some ways.
Wow, that's amazing. And for all of us, the parish is the source of our Catholic life. And what made you create this great documentary? Because it really does tell the story of a very special parish.
Well, I think it came out of my own need for, at a certain point I realized that I needed a community to participate in, that I couldn't just be praying on my own and like doing my own thing, that I was sort of longing for a community to be part of. And I was also, as a filmmaker, interested in the idea of making a film about a place and sort of looking at it an egalitarian approach that would have many stories that sort of are all equal, but the central character was really the place. And I was looking around at different parishes, and when I met Father Paul O'Brien, I realized that he was very open to the prospect of doing this. And also this place, Lawrence, was this particular parish was going through dramatic demographic change, and so it was I just knew there were going to be a lot of stories there, and it could be really, really interesting.
Was it different from what you thought it would be when you first started?
I really didn't know what to expect. I mean, the kind of filmmaking I do is, or what I was trained to do and try to do is very much just exploring people and stories and not having an agenda about what we do. So in some ways it's sort of acting on faith and just sort of thinking, well, I know there are a lot of there have to be stories here that are interesting, and if we just dig deep enough, we'll find them. But I had no idea that some of the stories would be so big, like the Corunum story. Corunum was just barely an idea when we started filming. And everyone's life in the film, most of the characters' lives changed quite dramatically in ways that I never would have expected. So that's sort of, it's very time consuming, but that's the thing that's really gratifying about this kind of filmmaking.
And at the heart of Scenes from a Parish is the sacramental response to people's spiritual and physical needs. How did you bring that out in the documentary?
By sacrament, you mean in a broader sense?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that was a big idea for me coming out of my relationship with my son and realizing that, in a way, I had made this connection through him. Like, he was sort of the agent that allowed me to enter into my faith, to this gift of faith that was given to me. And so I forgot your question.
Just this kind of the sacramental nature of
the
movie.
So that was really important to me, and I was very much, I was influenced. I read a book by Andre Dubus called Meditations from a Movable Chair, which is, he was a very faithful Catholic who was a daily communicant, and he wrote one of his essays about the experience of just the sacramental experience of everyday life, and just making a sandwich for one of his kids as a sacramental act, in a way. And I was really interested in all the things that go on where God is present in the world that we might not necessarily expect it to be, him to be.
Well, James, I know you have a lot of projects coming up. We only have about 30 seconds. What are some of the things you're working on?
I'm editing a film for PBS it was sort of an inquiry into race relations in the U.S. And I just produced 2 half-hour films for a project called The Raising of America, which is about children, what's best for our children. It's sort of looking at it from a lot of different angles.
How do you like being on this side of the camera?
It's a little bit disconcerting.
Hey, what is your son's name?
Anthony.
Anthony. Okay,
yeah.
Anthony.
Yeah, he's a great kid.
Well, he sounds like a gift.
He's a writer, and he's a beautiful writer. Yeah, he's turned out really well.
James, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Friday night at 9:30, Saturday at 1:30. Scenes from a Parish right here on Catholic TV.
Excellent. Thank you very much.